The recovery search continues. The community looks to memorialize the dead. And as KLTV7's Andrew Culver shows us from downtown Kerrville, the victims are being remembered today.
Heart just breaks for the families and the community, but it's really cool to see that everyone's joining in to help out, especially locals. It's really special.
A display of flowers, pictures, and individual names hang on a fence. This all serves as a memorial to the victims who died in the floods. Friends and families write personalized notes for the world to see.
It means a lot to come and just pay a little recognition to them. It's humbling, and at the same time, it's stressful.
Volunteers with Lutheran Church Charities brought comfort dogs for those passing by. They then traveled to meet first responders in need of a smiling friend.
Just to sit and talk with them, or let Elijah give them comfort. He has this thing about leaning against people who are truly stressed or need relief of some kind. I'm just here to help Elijah, help him share with other people.
Search teams look for the missing throughout the day off the Guadalupe River. As more bodies are recovered, the memorial serves as an emotional reminder of who is lost and still missing.
We just pray that everybody is found, and the people who are left to mourn are just blessed.
You can support them with your presence, and you can pray for them. And I think presence means more than anything to people in their mourning. No words will take it away, but just being there for them is really important.
Andrew Culver, KLTV7 News.
And you see that fence line there, around 70 different names are on display at that memorial alone. There's several of those there.
Meanwhile,